Breakfast with Jesus. How great is that? We had a great breakfast here Easter morning as we celebrated the resurrection. It's a great time of fellowshipping and being with people you love. And so here we are, back at the Sea of Tiberias, which is actually the Sea of Galilee, but the Romans changed the name to honor a Roman governor or something. But there's only one lake there, so if you see it called Tiberias, or you see it called Galilee, or I think there's another name, I can't pronounce it, Yersenetet or something like that, you'll see that different name, but it's all the same lake. And by the way, it's a lake, not a sea. It's fresh water. In fact, 65% of all the water in Israel comes from this one lake. Now, when our family and I toured Israel here in January, here were my kids standing by the Sea of Galilee, the Lake of Galilee. And it's a nice lake. It's about the size of Bird Lake. I've said that before. 23 miles around, so it's an okay lake. But we have much more impressive lakes up here in northern Michigan. I don't mind saying that our lakes are bigger and more beautiful and more blue water. So it's a nice lake though. But the one thing that's really striking about this lake is that how much of Jesus' ministry took place on the shores of this lake. Really, just a bulk of the miracles he did were all in this little area right around this lake. There's a little map of it. That's how big but you see, you got Capernaum and Gennesaret. I'll just pronounce it. Nobody else can know the difference anyway. Magdala, which we got the tour. They have a big fish drying center. They've actually done the excavations from that, where they used to bring the fish in and dry them out. Like when you see the little boy brought the fish and loaves, those fish had to be preserved somehow. They had a whole area for doing that in Magdala. And Tiberias, you'll hear that mentioned many times. Nain is down there, because I'm going to talk about just to name some of these miracles that Jesus did. Now in Capernaum, that's actually a temple from there, and that little stone structure, they got a church built over the top of it. It's like a flying saucer, but they feel that is where Peter's house was in Capernaum. And this has kind of maybe been like the base of operations for the apostles. Okay, so we had just a few of these miracles that were done here around this one lake. You had the changing of the water into wine, his first miracle at the wedding. That was in Cana, just a little ways away. In Capernaum, where this house was at, he did a healing of a man possessed by a demon. He did a healing of the centurion's servant. He did healing of the paralyzed man. It was in Capernaum that he caught the fish with the coin in its mouth when he told Peter that he needed some money for the temple. Told Peter to go out and catch a fish. Had a coin in his mouth. They had the calming of the sea is done all in this area. And then the raising of the widow's son was in Nain, that was a little bit off of the lake there. The feeding of the multitudes twice was all right in that same area. And that's where the Beatitudes were, not far from there. In fact, we got to stand on the mountain where the Beatitudes were given. It's all right there in that same area by that lake. And so, here we are again on this on the coast of this area. In fact, here we are riding on a boat out on the Sea of Galilee. But the Sea of Galilee is the place where Jesus, post-resurrection, told the apostles to go. How did the apostles know to go there? Well, they got a message from Mary Magdalene. Because after he rose from the dead, he told Mary Magdalene, "Go tell my disciples that I go before them to Galilee, and there I will appear to them." And so it was by that Sea of Galilee that he brought them. This is where it all began. This is where the mission all began, right on these same shores. 3 years ago. So much has changed. Yet, so much is still the same. The water's still the same. The famous philosopher Yogi Berra, once said, "It's like deja vu all over again." It was like, man, we're 3 years have gone by, and here we are, back on the shore of Galilee. The disciples had a mission. They followed Jesus for 3 years. They had so much emotion, so many different ranges of emotion, from the wondering what's going on, who is this guy, to the point of watching him perform these miracles and realizing there's something special, that he had power. Hearing him speak these words that were striking right into your heart. He watched people being healed, these multiple miracles. They were there when the bread were multiplied and the fed 5,000, just 5,000 men. There's probably 10,000 people there. And they had the sad times too. They watched their Savior being whipped and scourged and hung on a tree. The depth of disappointment, the depth of pain and agony they felt in these 3 years. But then that joy of seeing the Savior on that Easter morning, and then he wasn't in the tomb anymore. What's up with that? So after all of this just amazing emotional roller coaster, here they are on the Sea of Galilee again, and wondering, what's next? Okay, what do we do now? We're sitting here, what am I going to do? Jesus didn't really give us any, marching orders for after the resurrection. We just kind of did what we were told for these 3 years. Well, Peter's not one to sit on his hands. He figured he had to go do something. So he went back to something familiar. He went back to fishing. And so they went back. Come on, boys, let's go on out here and fishing. I know fishing. Fishing is something I can do. Fishing's in my blood. I know these lakes like the back of my hand. Come on, let's go fishing. So they load up the nets, load up the boat. There were 7 of them. And they went on off. There was Peter and James and John and Nathaniel. And so these were kind of the main apostles, plus a few others. And so, sometimes we are the same way. I know I am. Where God gives us something to do. We got a great calling to go perform something for God. Or we go to a great ministry show or a conference or a worship service for your heart. Just take it to the mountaintops. Or you do a great Bible study or something. God speaks to you to go do something. And then that's done. And you're going, what's next? What's next, God? That's a hard time. It's a hard time. And sometimes you want to go back to something familiar. Sometimes God delivers you from something, from a problem you had. Like, for example, somebody's an alcoholic. God delivers them from the alcoholism. But then you kind of, in that time of wondering what's next, you kind of go back to what's familiar. Go back to hang out with some of the old friends you had before. Go back to something that's feels comfortable. And and then pretty soon you find out everything you've gained, you've lost. And I get it. Sometimes I'm tired. And sometimes I'm tired. I don't want to try something different. I don't want to go do something else. I don't want to have another mission. I just want to go back to something that's comfortable and familiar. But God wasn't ready to take disciples there. They had a workout to do. And I think we do too. Jesus, so the scene is very familiar to the one 3 years before. And as Yogi Berra said, it's like deja vu all over again. So you have a boat, you have fishermen, and you have a night of fruitless fishing. In fact, we talked about that about a month or 2 ago when we talked about the calling of the disciples. It was the same way. The disciples, before they even knew Jesus, were out in a boat and couldn't catch nothing. Right? And Jesus was standing there. And Jesus tells them, throw the net out one more time. Try one more time. And the first time, they didn't know who this Jesus was. And they did it anyway. And Peter was amazed at all the fish that they brought in. In fact, Jesus was in the boat with them at that time, because Jesus was using that boat as a floating pulpit. And when Peter saw the miracle of all these fish being caught, he was convicted in his heart. He was convicted. He said, Lord, get away from me. I'm a sinful man. I don't deserve to be in your presence. 3 years ago, Peter felt that he wasn't worthy. But this year, this time, it was a little bit different. This time, he covers up his naked self. Yes, they fished naked, which is probably why they fished at night, because nobody wanted to see what was going on, I'm sure. But that was the custom. So he decided to put on a robe and jump into the water and swim to Jesus. He didn't want to wait. You know, he knew that Jesus wasn't there to make him feel guilty. Peter knew that Jesus was going to free him from that guilt. In fact, we'll talk more about that next week. But we don't have to feel guilty for wanting to have something familiar. We don't have to feel guilty about wanting the comfort of just being back where we were before. That's not where we're called to be, but God is there to deliver us from that guilt. So they come to shore, and Jesus is preparing a supper for a breakfast for him. Now, this is my wife and my daughter on this rock. This rock right here is where they say that Jesus had that charcoal fire going, where he prepared that breakfast at. It's right there on the shore. And you see the priest kind of sitting back there. You know, he's probably the priest that drew the short straw and had to sit there while these tourists are coming in here and taking pictures in front of this rock. He's just sitting there like, oh, yeah. Little tiny church, but it's right there on the shore of Galilee. And so it's kind of interesting. You know, you see a lot of these things there. They say, well, this is where this happened. This is where that happened. And you go, are you guys, are you sure this is right now? Close enough. It's close. If it isn't there, it's right around the road. So here's Jesus sitting around with his disciples. Now, there are several parallels to the work of fishing for men and what's going on in this little breakfast thing here. Because as I said before, when we had our breakfast last Sunday, it's a time of fellowship, a time of drawing closer together, a time of renewing old acquaintances. Well, and here are some of the parallels of fishing in this story, is that Jesus supplied the original fish. Remember, they came up, they'd already had fish already done cooked, there's bread already there. But when the disciples landed, he said to them, bring some of the fish that you have caught. Which I just love that little picture of all 12 of them holding one of these fish and coming up there to Jesus. That was in that little video. And you know, God can provide everything we need, but he asks us to partner with him. He wants us to bring something too. He wants us to, he already has, put us in the right place, leading us into the right situation. We could never design this for ourselves. We operate by his grace and according to his efforts. So he brings us to this place, but then he wants us to partner with him. We're given a privilege to be partnering with Jesus on this. And I always think of when you see those disciples bringing those fish, how is it symbolizing the people that are going to be brought to Christ, that we bring people to Christ, like they were bringing those fish to Christ that morning. It's a symbol of that. That's what we're asked to do. And when he said to be fishers of men. As I read through these scriptures, I am continually astonished at the privilege given to us by God to be co-laborers with him. Human labor was involved in almost all the miracles Jesus performed. For instance, when the Lord multiplied the bread and the fish, which the little boy had to feed the multitude, he first sent his disciples searching through the crowd to see what they could supply. Jesus just could have whipped up some fish and bread out of the thin air. But he sent this pipeline. He wanted him to be partners on it. Go on out and see what you can come up with. And so they came up with a meager couple of 5 loaves and 2 fish. And Jesus said, okay, I can work with that. You got a little skin in the game here. I can work with that. So we are asked to be that co-worker with him. And what he invites you to do may be a very simple thing. It doesn't have to be a great, grand thing. You don't have to heal a blind or make a dead man raised or anything like that. God's in the business of that kind of stuff. Sometimes it can be as simple as a cup of coffee, talking to a neighbor, walking across the street, just telling them what Jesus has done for you in your life and why it's important to you. Talking to your coworkers, talking to your friends, your family, and let them know that Jesus has made a difference in your life. You know, history has come to an end, and we are all gathered on the shore with Jesus. This may well be the greatest thing you have ever done. Had a cup of coffee with a friend, and seeing that friend in heaven with you because of that cup of coffee you had with them, because you got out of your, got out of your comfort place, got out of your familiar, and did something radical for Jesus. We see it ourselves a tremendous privilege to have worked with God in what we do in this world. There's an expression by hook or by crook. Now, I don't know if this is for sure, but some people say that saying was actually designed or came from this chapter of John 21. They say that the hook is a symbol of the fisherman, and the crook is the symbol of the shepherd. The shepherd's crook that he has, the staff that he uses with the hook on the end of it. So by hook is a fisherman, and by crook is a shepherd. And that's really what we are called to do. These are the ministries that God has sent us to do. We are to bring people to Jesus. We're supposed to hook them. Tell them what God's done to us. Just invite them to come to church. You hook them in. But then once you get them in, you shepherd them. You shepherd them and show them how this makes a difference. You lead them to Christ. And this is really about forming a relationship. This is the relationship that Jesus was trying to form with his apostles there. Trying to tell them, this is a mission. I got a mission for you. And he's going to get deeper into that as we go along a little further into this post-resurrection time. But here we are, 2019, at Charlotte United Methodist Church. We need to look at new ways, this church, to reach the fish that are out there. If we want to reach out to this community, sometimes we might have to use some new bait. And you can see right now that we've been doing some painting, just getting a new look here at the church a little bit. In fact, it's very subtle if you don't really pay attention. It's got that kind of an off gray color kind of going. And if you kind of look at the ceiling's still white. You see the off gray, that we're just trying to get a little fresh look. And I'm working with the leadership of this church to do some other things with this building, just to kind of clean it up and spiff it up again a little bit, and get it ready, get the space ready for a great catch of fish. And I ask that you pray for the leadership to be open to what God has planned for us to hear. Open our ears so we can hear what God's telling us to do. This church has been here for 141 years, but yet it has not completed the work that God has in store for it. And neither have any of you. As long as we're still breathing, God has mission work for us to do. And unless God has told you you're finished, does any of us have God say, you're done. Go ahead and go back to whatever you were doing before. We don't have any more work for you to do. They haven't told me that yet. So let's join together on an adventure out into the water to cast our nets again. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we are so grateful that you provided this space and this place, and that we are here right now at this time to join you in looking at the great catch that's out there. Join you in bringing those who don't know you to a saving knowledge of Christ. And Lord, we are your hands and feet in this community. We are your voice in this community. Lord, bless this church. Bless this church with an abundance of fish to catch. And give us the skill and the desire to reach out to them.